Kia ora everybody, tēnā koutou katoa. We're just preparing to start our seminar today, and just in case you can't see me clearly, let me introduce myself first. My name is Sandy Morrison and I'm the Vision Mātauranga Māori leader of the Deep South Challenge, and very pleased to be able to chair our session today. We're broadcasting here, as you will see, from Landcare, Hamilton. So allow me to start with a mihi. Tēnā koutou katoa, tēnā koutou I roto I ngā āhuatanga o te wā, me te mihi hoki ki tēnei whenua, e tū nei kei te rohe o Waikato Tainui, nō reira me mihi ki Kingi tū heitia, tūtonu, me mihi hoki ki era mate o Waiapu tātou katoa. Koutou ngā mate kua whitūrangitia, pia tātou tonu mai, kei runga I a mātou e tēnei wā, hei arahi I a mātou. Nō reira tātou te honga ora, anei mātou e mihi ana, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. And we're joined by many of you actually. We have representation from CRIs, from the university, from government ministries, from councils, and we understand that we have individuals joining us from the East Coast. Nō reira kia koutou hikurangi maunga, e hare te maunga ni hineke anei mātou mihi ana kia koutou, me tō koutou mahi ki te taha o Shaun nō reira tēnā koutou. Now, for those of you not as familiar with the Deep South Challenge, we do refer you to the website that has a more fuller picture of our mission and our programs and our aims, but just allow me to briefly share a few points on the Deep South Challenge. Our mission is to enable New Zealanders to adapt, manage risk and thrive in a changing climate. And in that work, I guess we're engaging with many of our communities, closely with central and regional government, whānau hapu, iwi and business, as well as infrastructure and industries, to find out about the concerns and priorities, and focusing our research so that it addresses New Zealand needs. We are this month last month, coming to the end of tranche 1 of our 10-year program, and we are currently in the process of renegotiating and redefining the next 5 years for tranche 2. So we'll ask all of you to be astute and alert and poised to respond to the aims and aspirations that we'll have, which will be confirmed by MB later in August about our next tranche, and do keep track of some of the communications that will be posted on the Deep South Challenge website. More specifically, we have our second presentation actually under the Vision Mātauranga Māori program, and I'll say more about our presentation a little later, but just to give you a sense of what we've been doing under the VM program, we have, and some of these are completed, 8 Māori-led science projects that have been funded. And there's been this whole gambit of different research projects, from investigating climate change impacts and opportunities for iwi, hapu, whānau and Māori business. And together they represent the largest ever Māori-led research effort into the implications of changing climate conditions for Māori society. So obviously we're very proud of these achievements to date. We also know that climate research must be focused on finding practical and sustainable options for Māori and for the country in general. And with that in mind, that leads us shortly to the presentation that Shaun Awatere will present. But before we go there, just to give you a sense of the process, we will ask Shaun to present for about 30, possibly even 35 to 40 minutes, and then we will have some time for questions. And so do save your questions until we invite you to put your questions, and that can be done in a number of ways. And to help just get a sense of that process, I'll like to hand this over to Lucy Jacob, who's, what's your title, Lucy? Manager? Yep. Manager of the Deep South Challenge. So I'll just ask you to explain our process of receiving your questions.
Thank you, Sandy. Kia ora, everyone. So just briefly, if you are joining us from a hub or even from your own computer, you will be muted the whole time. And when Shaun has finished his presentation, if you would like to ask a question, there are a couple of ways you can do this. Our preference is that down at the bottom of your screen, you should see something that says participants. If you click where it says participants, then there's an option to raise your hand. So if you raise your hand, then we'll be able to, Alex here will be able to monitor who has put their hand up first. If you can't find that option, there's another box that says chat. You can actually type your question through to us and we can read it out for you. We will just be able, we'll try and do them in order, but we'll do our best to get around everybody. And we would ask that you try and introduce yourself, what your name is and where you come from, and then ask your question rather than make general comments. And at no point should you unmute yourselves, please. We'd like Alex to control who's unmuted. So you may have to just wait a second until you're unmuted by Alex before you ask your question. Yep, I think that's everything. So I'll just hand back to Sandy to introduce Shaun. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much for joining us. We're very excited about Dr. Shaun Awatere's work that he's going to talk to us shortly soon. Shaun is actually from the area that formed the case study of his work from Ngāti Porou. He's a resource economist for land care research, and a large part of Shaun's commitment and work has been about the incorporation of Mātauranga Māori into development for Māori, some of the projects that he's led, and also to influence and guide policy, whether it be at a council level or a government level or an industry level. Shaun is also the theme leader under the research body called Ngā Pai o Te Māramatanga, and he's the theme leader for a stream known as Whairawa or Māori economics, and he's been able to bring all his expertise and experience, both as an economist and his work for land care, as well as in the Māori communities, into this project today. So thank you, Shaun, and we'll hand over to you now. Ngā mihi ki a koe.
Nā tēnā koe, Sandy. Mō te rā koutou katoa, ka nui te mihi. Uri tēnei no te tai rāpiti no Ngāti Porou, Shaun Awatere ahau, e kai mahi mō Manaaki Whenua Land Care Research. Thank you all for participating in this presentation today. And also I'd like to send my thanks out to the Deep South Challenge, particularly the Vision Mātauranga program, which has funded our project. The project has been a collaborative effort between Manaaki Whenua, Scion, as well as Huri mō Māori Tuku Law Trust, a hapu trust based in Victoria on the East Coast. Just like to provide a bit of context before we get into the presentation. Since the focus of the presentation is on Māori land, some statistics here just to provide us with some insights to really ground why there's a need to look at some of the issues that we're exploring for this project. So in terms of land use capability, that's the system which determines how well soils or the whenua is able to carry out horticultural production or arable type production. Most Māori land is actually in classes 6, 7 and 8, so it has some moderate to severe limitations to it. So there's probably about, close to 80% of Māori land is actually severely limited. Then when we look at what type of land cover the land has, you can see most of it is in indigenous forest, scrub, or it's in plantation and pine, with significant amounts in pastoral farming as well. The area of focus is in Te Tairawhiti on the east coast of the North Island. And you can see that this is primarily where most of the Māori land is located in. This is the rohe of Ngāti Porou. And this map here just shows the different land cover in the area. You can see just to the west of the Raukumana Ranges, so the Raukumana Ranges runs through this area here. A large part of the area to the west is an indigenous forest.
Yeah.
So a large part of the rohe onto the west of the Raukumana Ranges is an indigenous forest. However, you can see in the Ngāti Porou rohe, there's quite a lot of area that's still in exotic forest. This is that darker green area here, as well as in pasture. There's only a few spots that is in indigenous forest, probably up around in the Raukumana Ranges itself. Little patches here and there. The blue lines represent where Māori land is. There's most of the Māori land in the catchment around the river valleys. The Waiapu River runs through this area and those coastal areas. And then the lighter brown areas there and up around towards the east Cape area is in Manaaki, or in scrub in this case. And that's where all the high producing Manaaki honey comes from, around this Te Aroha area here and towards the East Cape. Now, if we look in terms of land use capability, most of it is in 6, 7 and 8. So it's probably it's a bit marginal for sheep and beef, it's still farmed in sheep and beef, but then there's other areas which is probably only suitable for forestry. Those are the darker orange areas, getting into the red areas. So for our project, our main objective was to look at investment opportunities for Māori land with respect to climate change. We had a collaborative team, so we had our folks from Manaaki Whenua, including myself, and Mike Martin. So Mike Martin, he was our soil erosion expert, been in the Gisborne area, East Coast area for a number of years, so knows the landscape well, carried out some of the mapping for post-cyclone Bowler. So he mapped out all those erosion gully areas we're originating from. And just a fountain of knowledge in terms of knowing that landscape in Te Tairawhiti. We've got Les Dowling, he was our forest ecologist. Juan Monge, he was our economist. They're based at Sion. And then equally important, we're hapu researchers, Tui Warmanhaven and Pia Pohatu. And we were also joined by Duncan Harrison, who was our spatial analyst, along with Adam Davenu, who did all the economic modelling for NZ Farm. I'll talk a bit more about that later. This is the area of interest here, and we're primarily focused on the Waiapu River catchment. So the Waiapu River is one of our key taonga connections to the Ngāti Porou rohe. There are some challenges with this river becoming shallower and wider every year, mainly through the contributions from erosion. This is not generally its normal type of flow. In the past, it used to be different, and the colour used to be different as well. But as the sediment has added to it, the colour has changed over time. However, it's of important cultural significance to Ngāti Porou, So the river is of important cultural significance to Ngāti Porou. Hence its importance that we look at investment opportunities that are going to create not only economic potential but are aligned to those cultural aspirations as well. The approach that we used was multiple steps. So initially we had hui wānanga with the landowners in the area. And we had those hui down at the marae, based in Ruatoria, at Rauru Marae in Ruatoria. We didn't want to go into the area and say that this is what we wanted to explore as researchers. It was collaborative effort, so we went in there, we talked with landowners and identified what were the key priorities for them. So it was all about restoring the health and well-being of the Waiapu River, as well as the ecosystems in that area as well. But at the same time, having the ability to pay the bills. So those are some of those aspirations. So we started off with a long list of economic opportunities ranging from horticultural activities such as olives, apples, lemons, macadamia nuts. And then after we had a number of one, we were able to start focusing on what those core priorities were. In the end, we came up with investment opportunities. I'll talk a bit more about that further. Investment opportunities that were more aligned to those priorities around sustainability, kaitiakitanga, or sustainable resource management. Then we did some climate change modelling. We used the downscaled climate change models, global climate change models, to the area and connected that up with the New Zealand empirical erosion model. That was probably the main biophysical data set that we utilised for the study. And then we looked at the impacts of the averages of the 6 global climate change models based on those 4 different representative concentration pathways in order to get a sense of the potential impact from climate change on erosion. Once we got a good idea based on that initial biophysical modelling of looking at the impact of erosion on the area, then we had some more hui, some more wana, and we looked at alignment of investment opportunities that could help mitigate and adapt Māori landowners to the challenge of climate change. We carried out some more modelling, and in this case it was the, excuse me, some more economic modelling. We looked at assessing the net present value, the economic returns, and current prices or in the current values of a number of investment options. And I'll talk about what those options are later. And then we also assess those investment options utilising a kaupapa Māori-based assessment approach. I'll talk about that further. After all that, we went back to the rohe and then looked at some on-site mitigation adaptation options. It primarily involved around best suitable areas on that landscape in the area for the investment options that we explored, as well as areas for mitigating climate or environmental impacts such as riparian planting, areas that were suitable for riparian planting, and areas that ought to be fenced. So this slide here presents what is the impact of climate change on soil erosion for Te Tairāwhiti. So the big polygon here, that's in various shades, that polygon represents the Waiapu catchment. So this is our the average of the 6 global climate change models for the different representative concentration pathways. So on the left-hand side, there's a 2-degree rise in temperature. Then as we move along, it's a 4-degree rise, RCP 4.5, RCP 6, the third one, and on the right-hand side, RCP 8.5. What this slide demonstrates is that as there's a rise in temperature, the frequency as well as the intensity of storms increases, resulting in more rainfall, which then results in the further erosion in the area. So one of the key findings from the project was that 41% of the catchment is at risk of severe erosion by the end of 2100, by the end of the century. So those areas that are shaded in the oranges through the reds indicate where erosion is going to worsen. And given that most of that catchment is in land use class 6, 7 and 8, so it's quite steep anyway, the risk of further erosion happening is increasing, intensify is going to be significant. So as I said, 80% of the catchment is at risk of moderate to severe erosion. And this is typical of the types of landscapes in the area inside Awhiti. One might be a pasture, and it's at risk of being converted into these gullies. Or on the right-hand side, that's supposed to be a stream, but it's just an area that's just filled with gravel, and it's getting wider and wider every year, which means that some of those river valley areas on the side that's suitable for pasture, that's suitable for horticulture or any other types of production is reducing in size every year. Meanwhile, those gullies at the back, at the top of this river system get wider and wider as more earth flows into it. So there needs to be some types of options available in order to mitigate the impacts from that worsening erosion. So that wānanga, so we have further wānanga, further hui workshops with the landowners, and eventually we settled on a host of indigenous afforestation. So we planted or identified options where we were planting indigenous trees. So we came up with another wish list of trees that we wanted to plant, or the landowners wanted to plant. And we eventually settled on Mānika as one scenario, Mānika plus tōtara as another scenario, Mānika plus tōtara and kawakawa as an additional scenario. So those were our 3 scenarios that we focused on. So for each of the scenarios, in terms of the economic returns coming from them that we assessed, we included the erosion control funding program subsidy that was available in the area. So the erosion control funding program is a MPI program that is run in conjunction with the Gisborne District Council and Ngāti Porou, Te Ranga Nui o Ngāti Porou, to provide funding to mitigate the impacts from erosion, which is a really awesome program that's in place on the coast. So we looked at that subsidy, plus we looked at the return from carbon farming as well. Within the returns from the Mānika scenario, Mānika plus tōtara, and third option, Mānika, tōtara plus kawakawa. So Mānika is the shrub type of tree species that shelters some of the juvenile podocarps or the larger tree species like tōtara, pūrere, and mātai. we wanted to focus on the landowners, along with the research team, wanted to focus on afforestation options because we wanted to mitigate potential impacts such as the ones that are in the images there. Those images are from the recent flooding around Tolaga Bay. So with the increasing intensity and frequency of storms, all those subtropical lows that come down from the north and fuel those easterly winds, they bring a lot of moisture, and that all moisture all just unleashes in the Northland, Bay of Plenty, and East Coast area. What's happened? There's a nice little time series that someone posted up on social media of the changing landscape in Te Tairāwhiti since the 1960s, when the afforestation programs were initially carried out, but then after 15 years, those rotations were forested, were cut down, and you can see the landscape changing. So initially you had large areas that were planted up in plantation forest, and then you fast forward to current times, and you see, initially back in the 80s is when you saw the tree cover being put in place. And fast forward to current times where you see the deforestation occurring, and the results of these images coming about from the slash from forestry practices. And I know that MPI and Gisborne District Council were trying to implement policies to mitigate the impacts from slash on our waterways. So there's still work to do, and I think the latest estimates is that to clean up this type of impact is going to take 2 years. So that's 2 years of the inability of that whenua to be able to generate any type of productive activity. There's a huge cost, not only in terms of environmental costs, but also in terms of the economic ones as well. So the biophysical modelling also showed that under the different representative concentration pathways, so baseline on the left-hand side, 2 degree rise over here, it's 4, then 6, then 8. The blue bars represent the potential erosion that's going to occur for each of those representative concentration pathways. So as the temperature increases, the frequency and intensity of those storms increases as well, resulting in further erosion. That's with no mitigation. So no mitigation, those blue bars represent current land use of sheep and beef. So if that sheep and beef continues, we just have pasture, erosion is going to further exacerbate. This is what this graph is showing. What it also shows that on the right-hand side of the blue bar, blue, orange and green bar, is the orange, green and red bar, which shows that when you do put in indigenous afforestation, when you do plant Manaaki, when you do plant Manaaki plus tōtara, is that you reduce the amount of erosion by 90% in comparison to sheep and beef. So the biophysical modelling is demonstrating that there's significant opportunities in afforestation to mitigate the impacts from soil erosion. This is just another slide, just further reiterating that point, that if you have forest cover, a tree canopy reduces the erosion rate by 9%. This seems like it's common sense. There needs to be that transition from pasture through to afforestation, through to indigenous tree planting in order to address what the climate models are saying with respect to the severity and the frequency of the problem with respect to erosion. So this slide here are some net present values. So some economic modelling that Adam Dagny did for us for a range of options. So on the left-hand side is the indigenous afforestation options. In the middle is a whole host of horticultural options. And on the right-hand side is some cropping options as well as forestry. With apples included in there as well. Probably the main takeaway point here is that when you invest in Mānuka, or Mānuka with the subsidy of the ECFP program for planting trees, along with the carbon pricing, you do get a small return, and that's greater than what you currently get from sheep and beef. So it seems like there's some economic viability there. But what this graph is saying is that you would only get into Mānuka and you wouldn't get into tōtara, because in terms of today's terms, tōtara is too costly. There's actually a negative return from investing in tōtara, because the initial outlay from planting those trees for us is more than what our current generations will receive from the future benefits from planting tōtara. But this is what the economic model says. There's other reasons why you would plant tōtara, why you would plant trees, and they are environmental, and they are social, and they are also cultural reasons. One of the key issues for us was that we had to consider the economic results alongside a kaupapa Māori evaluation. Kaupapa Māori evaluation provided us with a different perspective in terms of the benefits for each of these different investment opportunities. The indicators that we used were based on three core principles. So three core principles of kaitiakitanga, manaakitanga, and whakatipu rawa. I'll explain what they mean. So the indicators that we use for kaitiakitanga, or sustainable resource management, are on the next slide. But in this case, we wanted to assess the impact of the investment on the sustainability, as well as the enhancement of tikanga Māori. So some of the examples of this is not the full list of indicators that we use to assess how well an investment contributes to kaitiakitanga or not. This is one example, and it's in this biodiversity area. So how well does the investment protect or enhance native flora, fauna, habitats, ecosystems, and biodiversity? And that's considered around this concept of ngā ototo Māori, indigenous flora and fauna. And we use a subjective rating scale from 0 to 4, from Awe, meaning no protection, not too great. Pohara, some few protections, or few biodiversity improvements. Oh, quite okay. There's some protection of those ecosystems and of biodiversity. Pai means there's some moderate protection of ecosystems and enhancement of biodiversity. And Paeroa means awesome, great, lots of full protection, and that biodiversity and that ecosystem is flourishing. So in terms of manaakitanga, manaakitanga is that principle of caring for the environment, caring for the people. So if you're looking after your environment, looking after your community, those well-being benefits should flow through not only to the well-being of the community as a whole, but also to the environment as well. So it's looking at things such as the health of the animals, the health of the whenua, health of people, as well as the wider community. So one example of an indicator that we used here was kia mahi ngātahi partnerships, and does the investment help grow inter-iwi and intra-community commercial relationships. So a similar type of rating system from Awe through to Paeroa, where Awe did not really create any partnerships or really get people connected to that area. We're through to Paeroa, which ensured that there was a lot of opportunities to secure co-investment amongst even happy partners, local businesses as well. That we were utilising preferred retailers and preferred suppliers, and that there was support for local entrepreneurs. Now, in terms of whakatipu rawa, or growing the asset base, was ensuring that the asset base, whether it's whenua, awa, as well as ngahere was enhanced and it grows. So one example of the indicator that we used here was, does the investment provide for equitable distribution amongst beneficiaries and future generations? So here's this intergenerational equity concept that I mentioned earlier. And this is important because when you think about the benefits of Māori tōtara into the future, they're going to be received by future generations. Our current generations may not receive it, but future generations will. So in terms of assessing it from a kaupapa Māori perspective, we would probably rate it as pairawa. The benefits are always distributed equitably among beneficiaries, and well-being of future generations is considered. And whānau well-being is flourishing. Here's our assessment matrix that we utilise to assess which is the best investment opportunity to look at. Whole heap of criteria on the left there based on those three principles that I mentioned. In the report, it's got explanations about what they are. So in comparison to the baseline, which is sheep and beef, the most preferred option that we explored was afforestation plus horticulture. But equally important was the Manaaki tōtara and kaupapa option. So while the net present value said not so good, the kaupapa Māori assessment said that Manaaki tōtara and kaupapa was a good option to get into. So what are the recommendations from the project? There's two sets. So in terms of policy, there's a need to further promote indigenous afforestation, planting of trees within the Waiapu catchment, to promote the concept that there's some long-term benefits gained in terms of mitigating the impact on climate change, as well as receiving some economic returns as well. What probably needs to happen is a socialisation process to get our whānau and hapu ready in order to look at transitioning over from sheep and beef into planting trees and receiving returns from indigenous afforestation. Not so much from the benefits from milling, but the benefits from pharmaceuticals and nutraceuticals. So there needs to be greater coordination between all the agencies involved in Te Rāwhiti with respect to mitigating the impacts from climate change. And mitigation in terms of developing policies, strategies and processes that are interconnected amongst Gisborne District Council, Ministry of Primary Industries, as well as importantly, Te Rūnanga or Ngāti Porou. The erosion control forestry program winds up in 3 years' time. So that's a subsidy to provide for planting that needs to be considered in terms of what is going to be the successing program to that. And then also needs to be, if we're promoting indigenous afforestation along with 1 billion trees program, there needs to be a capacity building program put in place in order to help people realise those opportunities, whether it's through identifying which areas to plant in, bring to how do you look after the trees, how do you plant those trees. And then another policy recommendation is that what we found is that through the economic analysis, we used some uncertainty analysis, we found that potentially the erosion control forestry program is under-investing into Te Rāwhiti, and there's probably a good case for further investment into Te Rāwhiti in order to mitigate impacts from climate change erosion. What are the recommendations for Māori landowners? So in order to realise those opportunities, we've got to develop the capability of Māori institutions to be able to govern and make those decisions with respect to what are the options available to them. And then once they've identified those opportunities, we've got to develop the capability of people on the ground in those areas in order to be able to realise those opportunities, whether it's through making the pathways available for them to connect up to markets or to connect up to suppliers, or providing them with skills to get into looking after trees or to looking after nutraceuticals. And its benefits are threefold, in that they provide for greater manaakitanga and connectivity of whānau hapu niwi. No longer a beneficiary, they might have to go back there, start planting those trees, and then also there's jobs in terms of harvesting, whether it's Mānuka honey through to nutraceuticals. Realistically, there's only a few people in the area who are able to really champion those opportunities. Well, we call them local entrepreneurs or local champions. So we need supportive mechanisms in place to be able to help those people do the job that they're going to do. You know, there's the likes of, you know, Tui Momo having a Pia Pohatu. There's only two of them and they're doing everything. They're not only in these research projects, but they're also, you know, chairs of their school, but then they're also helping to look after the whānau and hapu. And then finally, in terms of the recommendations, one thing that we would recommend is that when assessing these types of opportunities with Māori landowners involved, with Māori involved, you need to have a holistic assessment suite involved. Because the main probably focus for our project was to ensure that we're creating opportunities for those future generations. Whakatipu rawa, mana uri whakatipu. Generating wealth for those future generations. So kia ora everyone, that's my presentation.
That's very illuminating, well researched, and really some solid evidence there. So I commend you for your presentation and for your work. And as you said, your research paper is on the website at the moment for people to look at. We're going to pass over for questions now over to Lucy and Alex, and they're going to moderate and control this.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. Echo my thanks as well, Shaun. That was a really interesting talk. We do have a hand raised at Motu, so we'll unmute Motu for them to ask the first question.
Thank you, Alex. Susie Kerr here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Sorry, it's our new microphone. Kia ora, Shaun. That was really great, really interesting, wonderful work. So as I think you're aware, we're working with Pia on what in some ways is a follow-up project to work out how to actually mobilise emissions trading system funding for carbon farming to try and address this opportunity. And I was really reassured to see your modelling that sort of confirms our very simple modelling that if you combine the erosion control funding program with Mānuka and carbon farming, you actually do better in a lot of places than you would do with sheep feed. So the challenge really is working out how to actually get people to be able to respond to those challenges. I think, yeah, we're very much consonant on that. I had a question about your tōtara forests and the economic modelling suggesting that it's not a good economic option because of the upfront costs being so high, etc., which I think is also consistent with other work I've seen. But then you conclude that it might still be good because it's an investment for future generations. And of course, what you're suggesting is that that is the only way that you can invest for future generations. The fact that the economic modelling suggests it's not a good investment suggests that it might be better to put that money into education or health services or something else that will support the future generations rather than investing it in tōtara, which is a very costly way of transferring benefits to future generations. I just wondered if you, with your economics hat on, had sort of tried to connect those two up. And I guess an ecological question related to that is that if we actually got people to invest in Mānuka reforestation on large scales and did pest control in Waiapu, would we gradually end up with tōtara and puriri and kawakawa anyway without actually having to plant it? So can you get those ecological benefits without deliberately planting those? So sorry, that was too many questions, but I'll stop.
Yeah. Where's that? So yeah, good points. Thanks for that, Susie. I think I had primarily my Ngāti Porou hat on. So I was really keen on looking at these alternative forestry options, particularly with tōtara. And I felt that it was our responsibility as current generations that if we take a principled approach, if we took that approach of kaitiakitanga, sustainable resource management, as well as an approach that was about enhancing our biodiversity, that we just bear that cost as current generations now in order to provide for a better future for our mokopuna and tamariki. So I put aside my economics hat, because yes, the economics hat would say logically you would invest in alternative approaches, but I see that there are benefits. There are benefits from pest management along with letting those areas regenerate. I guess it's my impatience to want to see things happen quicker, which is primarily motivating me towards the indigenous afforestation options. But definitely I see that there's opportunities there with regeneration, reverting, and then practically that's probably going to be the likely scenarios in those areas, because as you rightly put, it is quite a significant mind shift, paradigm shift for folks to transition from sheep and beef over into alternative land use options, including indigenous afforestation. One is because that area into Tairāwhiti has been for generations now primarily an area where sheep and beef has been carried out. It's part of it's become part of the culture for that area. And I think a lot of folks are proud of that farming tradition as well, given that it was promoted by Te Abirana Ngata at the time in order to promote retention of Māori land and to demonstrate that Ngāti Porou were just as good as everyone else in the country at farming. But I think, personally for me, there are better opportunities out there now that align more with some of the priorities that Ngāti Porou have around restoring the well-being and health of the Waiapu River, Waiapu Kōkahua, which is probably one of the primary motivations for some folks in Ngāti Porou, along with GDC and MPI through the Waiapu Restoration Program.
Thanks, Shaun.
Thank you, Shaun. So, should we go to Christmas? Okay, so we have a question from Ruatoria, I think from Kia.
Can I? Oh, we're already unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Tina.
Oh, kia ora kokaseni.
Kia ora, Korea.
Kia ora, Shaun. Fantastic presentation. That was really interesting. I was taking photos and Facebooking them to the whānau as well. So there'll be lots of online chatter about it, no doubt. My name's Tina Ngata and I'm here with Pia Pohatu, a Museum from Te Rinanganui Ngāti Porou boardroom. And I just had a quick question around some of the economic modelling. Shaun, there's you alluded to some of the costs that are incurred through the loss of land use post-storm events. And then, of course, we know that there's also a number of costs that wind up being borne by the general public in terms of the clean-up efforts. And currently, the Uawanui storm event is looking to go over about $10 million. And then, of course, there's the costs that are borne by land blocks like Waiamatutini out here and further along in Tikapa, who aren't going to be treated or be afforded restoration, and they're going to be carrying costs as well. I was wondering whether or not the costs of those, because I rather suspect in a lot of our discussions here in Te Tairāwhiti, we're not getting a true appraisal of the costs of some of these industries, of the costs that are borne by the general public through clean-up efforts, and some of that private to public channeling of funds that happens through these industries. So I was wondering whether or not any of those costs had been incorporated into the economic modelling that you were discussing.
Some of those direct costs weren't included, but through the uncertainty analysis that we carried out for the project, it did suggest that there was some riskiness in terms of those impacts occurring more frequently, and that there would be costs borne by the community. And so what the economic analysis found was that current investment in the area in order to mitigate the impacts from climate change is probably not enough. So there needs more investment from MPI, whether it's 1 billion trees, Gisborne District Council, Te Reranga Tūranga Kiwa, Te Reranga Tūranga of Ngāti Porou, in order to mitigate the impact from climate change. So the uncertainty analysis did suggest that you needed to invest more, but we did not look at the environmental costs of the impacts from climate change.
Okay, thank you for that. So we've now got Chris Phillips, who's been waiting patiently. You're unmuted now, Chris.
Kia ora. Thanks, Shaun. Good presentation. I guess my question flows on from Susie's, and I know the analysis didn't take into account what we would term passive or active reversion, but I'd be interested in what you think the economic considerations would be around, rather than planting Mānaka, to let natural reversion and some of the value that comes from the economic value that might come from that in terms of carbon gains and the potential for some production in terms of either oil or Mānaka honey in relation to, rather than sort of planting and having a plantation Mānaka industry.
Thanks, Chris. I think it's probably come down to timing. So if you do plantation forestry, indigenous forestry, there's more likely to be a stream of benefits that are going to come in a lot sooner. I think when we looked at Mānaka planting, was after the first 3 years. If you looked after it well, you're able to receive some benefits from honey and potentially from oils as well. Reversion probably takes a bit longer, depending on how you do that reversion, how you do that regeneration. And so there's probably an opportunity cost there for the farmers in order to take out their land out, potentially out of production. So people have got to weigh up those costs in terms of, do I take that area out of production, not receive a return for maybe 5 years or 7 years, or do I actually plant it up in the short term, through that erosion control funding program subsidy now, take advantage of it in order to get some type of plantation going. Because I think that's the thing that's available now, is that most of the area that we're considering in Te Tairāwhiti is available for that erosion control funding program subsidy. So that would be my response, is just the timings on how well people want those returns to come in, or how quick they want them to come in to pay those rates, or to actually get a return.
Okay, thank you, Shaun. So we do have time for one more question. If anybody in this room or elsewhere has one more question to ask, I can see a hand raised. So Carla, we're just going to unmute you. If you could just introduce yourself briefly and then ask Shaun your question, that'd be great. Thank you. Carla, can you hear us? Carla, are you there? Carla Muller, she unmuted. Okay, Carla, we can't hear you, but you might want to try and see if you can chat your question through to us. Just briefly see if there's anyone else.
I don't mind throwing in a question while the other comes in. And Shaun, it goes back to that paradigm shift. Like, if those farmers down there are like my uncle, I'm a farmer. My job is to farm, my job is animals, and as the generation coming after him, it's like, how far do we push now, you know, or do we kind of just wait? Just wondering if you've had any experience or had any of that feedback come your way?
Yeah, good point. So I'm quite impatient. So my initial thoughts is that we do like total conversion. Totally
Really
convert that
upset
farm.
them.
But I think as I've engaged with people, it might be a staged approach where you might take the most at-risk areas, plant those ones up first, and then look at introducing more areas into the plantations as you go. Because I know that the older generations will be very adverse to it, given that they spend most of their life on controlling it or cutting it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we do have the question now, I just can't quite read it, from Carla, who is an environmental economist at NIWA and also farms at Ruatoria. She's interested in how you feel this will impact jobs and opportunities within the community.
I think that the forestation options, that are supported well. So not advocating that you just go out into a forest to plant trees now. What I'm advocating is that within the ideal policy setting, with support from local government, support from regional government, with a strategy in place, a coordinated approach, that you could potentially start generating economic activity in there. And so I do believe that it's not going to be an instant silver bullet to fix all those problems, but that over time, as people see what other farms are doing, see what other whānau are doing, that there generally might be that step change towards that paradigm shift that might generate some employment. And the employment not only in terms of the directly related industries, but in those associated industries as well. So if there's enough supply coming in terms of honey production, in terms of oil productions, there might be in the future an opportunity to establish a plant to process the oil or the honey. However, having said that, while you might create the conditions to generate employment, the risk is that we need to develop the capability of people within that rohe in order to be able to carry out those jobs. You can develop the skills in terms of tree planting, in terms of the ability to process whatever good or service that they're working in. Then also providing the conditions, lifestyles, homes, for those folks who want to come back from the Gold Coast to work in the area.
We're just going to have one very quick last question, and we're very sorry to Christine Foggy, we won't get to you today, but please do feel free to email through your questions. Inga Smith had her hand raised first, so we're going to just jump to Inga for a final question. Inga.
Yep, kia ora. Thank you very much, Shaun. That was great. It was really interesting. I actually don't know anything about forestry or economic modelling, but my question was about the economic modelling for totara. If you extended it beyond, I think it was a 20-year period, how far out into the future would it have to be for the economic modelling to become profitable?
Right, so what the models say is that it will not be profitable for our current generations because the benefits won't probably come on stream until further down the track, 20 years plus, when most of us may not be around. So the benefits will be accrued to future generations. So there's an initial cost that we pay up front in terms of planting those trees, because they are a bit more costlier than just letting it revert or put a market in, and we don't get any benefits from it. But there might be environmental ones, or there might be cultural ones. So those need to be included into the assessment process as well, not just the economic ones.
Okay, well, Ngā mahi kia koutou I whare ki ngā pātai me ngā wero, kei mui a tātou. So just as a wrap up, Shaun, I just also wanted to commend you for your methodology. I thought your methodology and your kaupapa Māori approach and your holistic approach and the way that you broke down those concepts to bring meaning and achieve the outcomes that you've got has been a really valuable way to deepen your research. And as we all know, well, many of us know who are involved with kaupapa Māori research, ultimately the result is for the benefit of the community. And I just want to pay tribute to the people who you worked with in terms of the he oranga mō ngā uri tuku iho trust and all the wānanga that you held with them. Nō reira, nō koutou te whenua, nō koutou te mana. Anei a Shaun, hei noho, hei kaiarahi, kia puta mai ngā hua hei aha, mō ngā whakatūpiranga kei te hiki. So just to acknowledge that in the end that it is about land, it is about the benefits for Māori, and in particular we're talking about a particular community in the Tairāwhiti, and in time we hope that the recommendations that you've thought through in this project can be implemented and put into place for the community. After all, that's the benefit of the reason of your research. So with that, ngā mahi kia koutou I hui mai, I te ahi nei, hei whakarongo ki tēnei kaupapa. Thank you for joining us in this presentation by Shaun under the BM program, under the Deep South Challenge. And just in closing, please take the recommendations and think how they can apply into other communities that many of you all may represent. And as I said earlier, the technical report is already on the website for your viewing. And if you've got any other questions, I think Shaun's email is there as well. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to find. So just in closing, ngā mahi kia tātou katoa I raro I te mana o taupiri maunga, me te awa rere nei, kai mārere kia tātou katoa, ngā mahi. Thank you. And just a round of applause for Shaun.